On today's episode, we'll be talking about shadow people, sleep paralysis, haunted burial grounds, and much more. All coming up on this edition of Midweek Mysteries. Welcome to the show, and thank you all for joining me. I'm your host, Nick Ryan. Before we start, I'd like to say thank you to Melinda and Nicholas. Your support and generosity are greatly appreciated. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to subscribe, share, and review the podcast. And if you'd like to support us even further by becoming a patron or by donating, please visit us at patreon.com/paranormalmysteries or at buymeacoffee.com/paranormal. Your support in any form helps to make the show possible. And if you've encountered the paranormal and would like to share your story, please email me at paranormalmysteriespodcast@gmail.com. All experiences, no matter how big or small, are always welcome. And with that in mind, our first midweek mystery comes to us from Wilson. Wilson says, I want to say that I really enjoy your podcast, and it's something me and my family really enjoy. My story happened a few weeks ago, so it is still fresh in my mind. I was in my bedroom, sitting on my bed with my back to the wall. My neighborhood is very small, and if someone shouts from the other end of the street, everyone can hear them. My mom and dad were in our living room, listening to a Guns N' Roses song and playing chess, when we heard 4 loud banging noises. I'm not sure if this makes any sense, but the noises sounded almost violent. They had a gritty sound to them that made a shiver go down my spine. My mom called me and my 2 younger sisters into the living room. My bedroom door is on the first level and is only about 2 or 3 feet away from the living room. I ran into the living room and asked my mom what had happened, but she told me to turn the lights off and to stay low on the floor. I did what I was told, and my sisters came down shortly after, receiving the same instructions, minus turning off the lights. We laid in the dark on the old rug for about 5 minutes while my mom called the police, explaining the noise and her theory that it was a gun being shot into the air. My dad decided to peek out the door, but my mom and I immediately shut down that idea. Eventually, we were allowed to be back in our rooms, and I immediately texted my friends. Keep in mind that it was very dark and late in the day. I was pretty freaked out and decided to get a glass of water to calm my nerves. When I passed by my window in our dining room, I felt the urge to look out the window. When I pulled the blinds up, I saw a tall man in all black standing on our porch. I waited for him to knock and announce that he was a door-to-door salesman, but instead, he took out a flashlight and his phone. He pointed his phone at our door, but I couldn't see if he was taking a photo or something else. While he was doing whatever he was doing, I had the time to notice a small Pomeranian at his side. The Pomeranian looked fairly normal, except for the fact that it had dark circles all over its body. Shortly after, he walked down our pathway and jumped into a gray van, quickly speeding away and taking the concerning dog with him. I thought nothing of this, since Amazon usually takes photos of your orders on your porch to confirm that they were delivered, but it still unnerved me. Skipping to 2 nights ago, my mom had come home late from the grocery store around 7:45. She asked me to go out to the car to grab the heavy boxes of sparkling water, since I'm a bit stronger than she is. I agreed and went out to our minivan, and when I was about halfway to the car, I saw a blonde ball of fur disappear behind the large oak tree next to our pathway. I walked a little closer to examine, but there was nothing there. I quickly ran to the car and grabbed the boxes, and as soon as I closed the door, a man, who I assumed to be the same man from the first creepy encounter, came running up the street and passed me. I could only see his face for a second, but it seemed sunken and very pale. A few minutes later, I had brought the boxes inside, and I let my cat out, since she is an indoor and outdoor cat. Simba, my cat, sat right in front of where I saw the blonde creature for about 15 to 18 minutes before coming in and hiding in the basement. Since then, it's been pretty quiet in my neighborhood, and a lot less welcoming. I don't know if I will ever know what caused those banging noises, or why that guy was there, or what the blonde creature was, but I hope if or when I do, it's not what I think. Thank you for reading my story, and sorry for how long it was. I didn't intend for it to come out quite this way. Anyways, have a nice day or night, and stay safe. Our next story of the night comes from Remy, and Remy's story is called Hallway Man. Remy says, "Hello. I want to say thank you for taking the time to read or listen to my story, and to please excuse the length. I believe in the paranormal, and so do my mother and brother, but my father is a skeptic. Both my mother and me have been exposed to paranormal activity since we were very young. My mother encountered an energetic, perhaps malevolent spirit via Ouija board when she was very young, but that's a different story, and not mine to tell. And I have encountered shadow people since I was a kid, and into the present. The first time I encountered a shadow person, I was right around the age of 8 or 9 years old. I was at a birthday party for one of my friends in the summer. Lacking a pool, we all ran around the backyard under the sprinklers and played on the trampoline. When we went back inside, I was the last one to change out of my bathing suit, and after everyone had changed, they went into the game room down the hall from the bathroom. After I had done my business, I came out of the bathroom in dry clothes, and I saw a tall shadow of a woman on the wall in front of me. Now, I know it wasn't my shadow, because she was wearing a skirt, and her hair was tied up in a bun, and I was wearing pants with my hair hanging down past my shoulders. The hallway was dark, as it had no windows, and the doors to the rooms along the hallway were all closed. The only light being produced was in front of me, coming from the open door of the bathroom. As previously stated, I was the last to change, meaning everyone else was down the hall in the game room, whose door was closed as well. I didn't make any noise, but I ran as fast as I could down the hall and into the game room. I saw a ghost, I told the other kids, but they ignored me. Later, I asked my friend's parents if their other daughter was home at the time that I saw the shadow, but she had been out with her friends. The second time I had encountered a shadow person was more recent. This instance had occurred from my freshman to sophomore years of high school, when I was about 14 to 15 years old. This shadow, which I got a sense it was a man, would frequently show up in my hallway at night, often between 2:30 and 4 a.m. Every night I made sure I would close my door before I went to sleep, but my mother would sometimes open my door a crack to let the cat out of my room when she got up to get water or to use the restroom. Every time she would crack my door open, I would wake up later and see this man in the hallway. He was less of a shadow and more of just darkness. He had no face or definitive shape, but I could feel where his head and shoulders would be if he had them. He never moved from this spot in the hallway or came into my room. He would simply just stand there and observe me. At first, he gave me a malevolent vibe, but as time went on, I realized that he was passive, and my first impression of him was due to the fear of something being in my hallway and watching me. I told my brother about him, and together we named him Hallway Man, and he became less scary after that. I researched how to get rid of shadow people, because although I knew he wasn't going to hurt me, he was just strange, and I didn't enjoy his presence. My research told me to find humor in the situation in order to melt away the fearful nature of shadow people. Hallway Man's name had then somehow morphed into the Hoo-Woo Man, and now every time I think of Hoo-Woo Man, I laugh, and I haven't seen him since he was given that name. Best regards, Remy. Our next listener story comes to us from Paula, and Paula says, "In March 2020, when the pandemic first broke out, I thought I had had my last sleep paralysis encounter. Little did I know then that my year was going to finish like it did today. As I mentioned in my previous sleeping paralysis episode, I am very skeptical about these things. I believe that when my mind is in high levels of stress, it gets highly creative and starts dreaming the wildest things, hence the sleeping paralysis. I must admit that right now I am under stress due to problems that the rest of the world is suffering from, such as unemployment and staying home all the time. But my sleeping paralysis in the past always had the same repetitive pattern. A man whispering nothingness to my ears and never showing its face, and waking up only to prayers. But not today, unfortunately. So, here it goes. I came back from a late Christmas party around midnight. I live with my boyfriend, but I was a bit upset with him at the time. I decided to sleep in our guest room, and never have I ever slept in that room. The room is exceedingly small, just enough space for the couch, an office table, and some shelves. It is a square-sized shape, very illuminated because of its big windows and white curtains, meaning that it doesn't give you the creeps at all. In fact, quite the contrary. I prepared the couch for a good night's sleep, put on my headphones to my usual go-to-bed podcast, and in a matter of seconds I was dead asleep. At 6 a.m., I seemed to have been woken up by someone that was laughing with me, but also sitting beside me on the couch. This time it seemed to be a she. She then pushed me off the couch, and I slid across the room until I was under the office table. I thought it was fun, and started laughing as well. I then told her, "Okay, help me get up," but there was no more laughter. I repeated, "Help me move," but nothing. I realized then that there was no one else there, and now I was bothered. In a blink of an eye, I was laying on the couch again, as if nothing had happened, and my face was facing the wall in front of me. The wall is white, and it was illuminating the shadows of the tree branches from outside my apartment, which was creepy, but it only got worse because all of a sudden, those shadows started turning into witch icons, as if it was a black and white film projecting on the wall, showing all the possible witch icons one after another. I was scared and immediately started to pray, but I felt that they were playing with me because I would start praying out loud, and only mumbles came out of me. She, or they, wouldn't allow me to pray, or tried to make my prayers sound funny so that they wouldn't be heard, and no one could help me. I was beginning to feel desperate because in all my previous sleeping paralysis episodes, prayers would be my exit strategy, but this time it wasn't working. This force was a lot stronger and with more confidence by showing itself for the first time ever through the witch icons. I felt my hand wanting to pound the couch because I was desperate to get out of my sleep paralysis. And finally, after a hard struggle, I was able to free myself, yet I felt as if I was being lured to fall back to sleep again. "Fall asleep again," my brain would whisper to me. I struggled to keep myself awake that morning, and after that, it was impossible to sleep the next couple of hours. Sorry for how long this was, but after today's sleep paralysis, I cannot stop thinking of an explanation that an ex-boyfriend of mine told me regarding these episodes about 2 years ago. He said that these people who cause sleep paralysis are like witches. They collect souls to gain points for the devil. Sounds crazy, yet I cannot get the witch icons I saw today off of my mind. If you have any explanation about this, please feel free to contact me. I wish you a happy new year with 0 sleep paralysis episodes. Our next listener story comes to us from Holly. Holly's story is called Shadow Farm. Holly says, "Hi Nick, I wanted to share my most recent experience with you. Every Sunday I spend most of my day at the barn, taking care of the horses. I start at about 6 a.m. and usually finish in 3 or 4 hours. About 2 weeks ago, I was finishing up my last stall out of the 8, and I heard someone shout, 'Hey!' So I peeked out of the stall to see if any one of the other girls had come down. No one else was there, so I shrugged it off and continued spreading the bedding. A few minutes later, I heard the same voice, distinctly female, say, 'Hello!' in a sing-song way, like in a way you'd say it if you were trying to find your friend. I walked out of the stall and said, 'Hello?' back, but didn't hear anything else, so I shrugged it off, finished up my chores, and went home for lunch. After I went back to the barn to do night chores, I was home waiting for my boyfriend so we could make dinner. I was standing at the sink, which is at the back of the house, literally on the back wall, washing my dishes with my dog sitting next to me. I distinctly heard 3 knocks on the wall. My dog, who is named Pup, gave a low growl and put herself between my legs, which, if anyone knows dog training, is a protective stance. The lights flickered, and the yard light outside went out, but the motion light on the front steps turned on. Pup stayed with me until my boyfriend got home. I hadn't said anything about it to him, and he turned to me and said that he and his buddies had found an old foundation and cast iron stove in the woods while four-wheeling the back property. To our knowledge, there is no record of anyone having owned the land before his dad had bought it 21 years ago and clear-cut it for the house. So I shrugged it off and said, "Oh, that's weird," and left it at that. Then yesterday, Sunday again, I was at the barn, going to get hay out of the lower barn to bring up to the main barn. The lower barn always creeps me out. It's an old milk cow barn, and still has a couple stanchions left. I was walking towards the back of the barn, about to grab a bale of hay, when something darted out from what used to be a horse stall that's now storage, and peeked around the door jamb. Trying not to panic at this point, I told the shadow that it was scaring me and that it was not welcome while I was in there. It then vanished. I grabbed the hay and speed-walked my happy butt back to the main barn and sat down and tried to gather my head. This barn has some negativity around it, and just in the last year or two, I know of 2 human deaths and quite a few animals. It's weird, because for my friends and I, the barn is usually our happy place, but most of the time, we're angry and at each other's throats. I don't know if it's because after the last year, with everything, we're all just stressed and tired, or if it's because of the negativity on the property, but I'm hoping it gets better soon. Thanks for reading, and wishing you a great year of happiness and health. Holly. Our next story comes to us from Patrick. Patrick's story is called Spirits, Good or Bad. Patrick says, "First of all, thank you. There isn't really a way to tell this in a summary, so I'll just start with one experience for now. This is an incident that occurred in mid-fall of 2012 in Norman, Oklahoma. When I was 16 years old, I had started having night terrors on a very consistent basis. They only lasted for a few months, if that, and I will type out the details to these episodes for a later date. What I really want to discuss is a single event in which I was witness to something I had never seen before, and have yet to again. My childhood home was built on what is believed to be Native American burial grounds, and I know that there have been links to these sites with reported paranormal activities, but I've never heard anyone talk about anything happening where we live. And to this day, as far as I know, my family is the only one that has talked about strange activities. One night, my mother asked me to walk our dog outside to relieve himself. It was relatively quiet for the time, and things seemed fine. I didn't have any feeling of being observed or anything, so I walked around the property for about 15 minutes before I started to notice frantic behaviors from the animals all around. The horses at the stable were rearing and yelling, and every dog within at least a mile barking as if they sensed a terrible presence. I began to get serious, and I scoped my surroundings all while my dog is silent and frozen with fear. The next thing I know, as if outside of my own control, my eyes lift up from my dog and approximately 50 yards ahead of me, across my parents' field and through the line of trees, I saw what shocked me to my core. A large figure of a shirtless man in what looked like a chieftain's headdress, no less than 6 or 7 feet tall, and about 250 pounds of pure muscle, and entirely engulfed in fire. It was as clear as day, and it was just standing in my neighbor's backyard, staring at me. I looked at it for no more than a minute before my instinct took over, and I picked up my dog and sprinted inside. At this point, I was in tears, worried that it was about to follow me and do the unthinkable. My parents were just sitting in the living room talking, and they saw my state of terror and asked me what had happened. I explained, and they had no idea what to say or think. I then stayed inside as my dad went to check around the surrounding area, only to come back without seeing anything. As we come to the end of tonight's episode, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in, and a special thank you goes out to Wilson, Remy, Paula, Holly, and Patrick for sharing their experiences. If you'd like to share your thoughts or a similar experience with one of tonight's storytellers, please email me and I'll be sure to forward your message onto them. If you've witnessed something that you can't explain and would like to have your story shared on the podcast, please contact me at paranormalmysteriespodcast@gmail.com or visit paranormalmysteriespodcast.com and click on the Tell Your Story link. All of our contact information can be found in the show notes. And until next time, I hope you all have a safe and healthy rest of the week, and we'll see you back here on Friday with our next episode. From all of us at Paranormal Mysteries, thank you for listening, and remember, don't wait for the unknown to come to you. Get out there and find it.